about that because people on the internet can sometimes get quite passionate and quite insane.
Passionate's very politically correct.
Yeah, that's one way.
Was there anyone that you kind of had to say, okay, we're just going to have to block this person, or did you just let everyone run?
About 5 every hour plus. There's a lot of trolls. There's a lot of spammers. With the technology that we were able to use, there's a lot of like open source stuff. So that meant we had who we had. So we had to constantly control people that were trying to do things that were just not helpful. But we didn't control people that were just being mean. If they were doing it intelligently, because that was kind of part of the experiment. It was interesting because, you all can attest to this. We gave these huge speeches about how everyone was going to be awful. And that everyone's just going to want you to die, and they're going to be angry and awful and mean, and just be prepared. And they were. But what was more surprising and more interesting is when they weren't. When they wanted these characters to live.
There were just as many people who were kind of invested. Okay, there's always going to be haters, but there's also the people who are like invested in, here's what happened, to the previous character, did you try this? Let's help you try to get out.
Yeah.
And in a lot of ways, even in general writing of the characters and the stories, it's like we didn't mention certain things about our character's history. The people online wanted to plug in as many holes as they could. They really rounded out the story in a way that us on the production or even the writers could ever think of.
Yeah, they would find things. They'd be like, "What's that red piece of tape?" We're like, we're just trying to tape the thing down.
Go with it.
Yeah.
We're like, it's a clue.
Right.
They
with
were
it.
actually
Check
so
under the
much more
bed.
helpful and loving than I think I ever gave them original credit for.
And incredibly industrious. It was like,
Yeah.
go through the ceiling,
Yeah.
right down the way, all these
Like,
ways.
I'm not MacGyver.
It's a set, what do I do? Because you want to maintain the truth of the story and you want to maintain the illusion, but at the same time, you want to honor every suggestion that comes to you.
And they created a community. What I found interesting was, at some point, they would sort of help us police the community. Like, they'd be like, hey, Sarah, I think there's someone here who's under 18. That's not appropriate for them. Could you boot them off? Like, if people were super mean or trolly, they'd be like, oh, really? You're going to just come here and hate on this? Like, they became protective of us and their experiences, and that threw them even more on our side.
Yeah, the number one thing to say when you first came in the room was, "This is fake."
Yeah. Really? No kidding.
Everyone was like,
That's mind-blowing.
Yeah, we know.
They're like, did you get that from the disclaimer that you had to click on?
Funny.
So, and they helped out. We didn't even have to plant people to ridicule them. They would just do that on their own.
They were very protective of the fourth wall.
Trolls
And
would
they
get
definitely
hung.
wanted to, if people came in and were like, hey, what is this, what's going on, like, fans would chime in going, well, it's like this, and the character's up to this, and we need to do, it was really cool. Like, you didn't have
by the
to
way, here's the
fill
link
every
to
new person
so-and-so's
in.
blog or so-and-so's
Yeah,
Facebook
right,
page.
exactly.
And as much as people would say, they should have done this or they should have done this, I think that a lot of people were pretty genuinely impressed by not just, okay, we're in a room for 24 to however long you want to being in the room.
Dude, I did 56 hours.
But maintaining a social media, Facebook pages, blogs for months beforehand, and I think they really appreciated that.
Yeah.
As far
We'd
as,
set
our
up the
backstories.
framework and groundwork with our blogs, our Tumblr, Facebook pages, and we'd made friends with some of these people already. So that when they jumped in, it wasn't just this new thing to hate on. It was, hey, I've posted on your wall before, I've done this. And that sort of relationship was already sort of built in.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And when each character would pass on, every wall would suddenly fill up with R.I.P. and I miss you, and people putting up signs. Like, it was really treated like they had genuine relationships with these characters. It was pretty cool.
Yeah.